Welcome everyone to our Riverside City College School of Business. My name is Arjuna Wilcoxon. One of our goals is to bring you entrepreneurs, academic instructors, classified professionals, and leaders within our community. Today we are joined by my good friend and the president of our college, Claire Oliveras. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's just kind of jump right into this. Tell us about where you grew up. Tell us kind of experiences you had as you were growing up. What made you decide to go to college? What made you decide to major and what you decided to major in?
Yeah, great questions. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm
course.
so honored and humbled to be able to be one of your guests, invited guests for this show for your business students.
Thank you.
So I grew up in Portland, Oregon, which is the major city in Oregon, and it's the Pacific Northwest. I grew up there and didn't know about college until my senior year.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to a large urban high school in Northeast Portland, Grant High School. Go Generals!
Grant High School.
Yeah, go Generals!
Okay.
And I'm the first in my family to graduate high school between both sides of my family, my mom and my dad. We come from a low-income, working-class family, and didn't know about college, but knew I was going to go. My mom would say, "You're going to go to college," but we just weren't sure how. So my senior year, I was had a counselor that exposed me to really career and work. We called it back then Voc Tech.
Voc Tech, yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So I did kind of the general ed classes in high school, and then also had Voc Tech. So I had early release my senior year, and went to work as a receptionist at my neighborhood cosmetology school. We called it the neighborhood beauty school.
Yeah.
So I worked 5 days a week as a receptionist. Once I finished school in the morning, went over there in the afternoons, and started taking Saturday classes towards a cosmetology, license, I guess. Cosmetology degree we call them now, but back then it wasn't a degree. I think I probably would have benefited from staying in school longer than 11 a.m. my senior year. So I had some idle time, but put that time into work. So I worked as a only child with my single mother raising me. It was important to work.
Wow.
But one morning I learned of an opportunity to miss first period to hear from a multicultural admissions counselor from Western Oregon University. And I had a chance to learn about college, and so he helped prepare us. Yeah.
You said something that I want the students to make sure that they heard. Yeah. Y'all, our president shared with us that she was the first individual to go to college, and she grew up with a lot of the challenges that we all face, that you face, working, responsibilities at home, and still trying to be successful. And look where she's at now. So I want you all to really realize there's so many people here who have experienced what you experience, and look at them now. These are individuals you need to tap into who can really guide and support you. So I apologize for cutting you off.
Yes.
So that high school, so college, tell us about your colleges and college degrees.
Yes. So I went on to have the opportunity to go to Western Oregon University, which is a small public liberal arts college in rural Oregon. It was quite a culture shock and transition. I didn't do well my first semester, and so received outreach from multicultural admissions and student services, multicultural student services and programs, and the TRIO student support services program. And so they recruited me into the program to make sure I was academically successful. I think I didn't know what this meant, but my first quarter of fall as a freshman, I was placed on academic probation because I somehow took 17 units.
Your first semester?
First semester.
Oh, that's horrible.
I was a fairly good high school student, but this was a huge leap.
That's a lot of units.
Leap of faith. Yes, took a full load, 17 units, and didn't do well in them. So I was placed on academic probation, which the only understanding I had of probation was related to juvenile justice system. I didn't understand the term probation, so I thought that I had a big target on my back and was in trouble. And so I didn't tell my mom because of that. So because I was afraid. I was scared and alone in college, away from home for the first time as well, about an hour away from home. But I recall the director of the TRIO program, Dr. Leo Rasca Hidalgo, who I'm still close to today, and then the director of the Multicultural Student Services program, Mr. David Martinez, who I'm still close to today, reached out and said, we want you to stay here and be successful, and why don't you join these programs? So I received wraparound support services from TRIO.
That's beautiful.
And got involved in student activities and student life. In fact, the time that I was in college, it was there was racial unrest in LA, in Portland. And so those of us that were there was just a handful of students of color there. I identify as Filipino American, and we were close knit. There was about 10 of us that came the same year from our high school, and we were trying to make sense of the world, and that probably added to some of the feelings of isolation and uncertainty. But it was through student activism, student life, student activities, the student support services that I really found a home place there and was able to be successful and graduated with a major in communication studies.
Would you tell our students one more time?
Yes, the support.
Yes,
the
because
support
you went
made a
through
difference.
TRIO.
Yes, I'm a TRIO graduate, proud TRIO alumni, student
Wow.
support services.
Y'all hear that? I was an EOP. If it wasn't for EOP, I don't think I would have made it.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's reaffirming. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah.
So real quick, you took 17 units.
Yes.
I think our big issue is we always bite off more we can chew.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway from after learning? I took too much. It just stretched me so thin. And
Yeah. Well, I think I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference.
That's right. You're
I
first.
just turned 18. And remember, my senior year, I was only going 11 a.m. and then off to work and classes on the weekend. But in my mind's eye, I decided, well, with this opportunity to go to college, that maybe I want to major in business. And that means I need to take economics. I need to take a science. I was looking at all the prerequisites you need to major, like we did in high school. And I didn't have an advisor or a counselor guiding me on what to take and when to take it. And so I think it was during the summer orientation at the university that I had some assistance filling out that schedule, but there were no interventions to say, that's too many.
Yeah.
You haven't had English in a while.
Yeah.
And so the TRIO program allowed me to be able to take a pre-college math, a pre-college writing to fill the gap between my senior year and freshman year. And I was able to rebound back, and do better my second year. And it wasn't until I actually declared my major that I started to pull better grades. So being undecided in my first year or so was difficult. And so with guided pathways, for example, here, and our 8 different educational pathways and engagement centers and student leaders and advisors and counselors, that really makes a difference at the front door to support, because some of us have gone through the experience where we didn't have that front-loaded support at the beginning. So I chose communication studies as my major. I decided to minor in business because what I had aspirations to do at that time, in my mind's eye, was open up salons. I was on this track for cosmetology school, discovered once we got off the simulators that I did not want to do feet and hands. We have different personalities, and my personality is much more like, I just want to read. I just want to I love hands-on activities and work right now, but at that time I just wasn't drawn to the application of cosmetology. I was more interested in the afterwards, like the outcome of cosmetology, but not the actual doing it. And so I pursued a degree in business with anticipation of coming back to my hometown and supporting my peers who were also in beauty school to open up, like a cluster of salons in our neighborhood.
Wow.
So I thought I would need a business degree. But through different trials and tribulations in school, and also experiencing sort of firsthand bias and discrimination based on my gender and my race and my age, I just decided, communication studies has more application for me to talk about my lived experience right now at this predominantly white university. It also gives me the room and space to learn more about Filipino identity and history. I'm in a predominantly Latinx community, and so what are some of the solidarities between Latinx, Black, Filipino? And so I became more politicized around social justice issues in my undergraduate studies, and communication studies created a path for that. And I minored in business and started to pursue a minor in Spanish, but wanted to graduate, and so took up an internship over the summer at my local community college back in Portland, interning with our multicultural admissions counselor at the community college.
Wow.
And also worked one summer as a trio upward bound counselor, summer counselor.
Did
So
you?
I started to get introduced into student affairs and recruitment and retention programs because they helped me in
Yes.
my time. That really, I think the student activism mixed with being able to think about a career in student affairs was the launch pad or the catalyst for a long career in higher ed. I'm about to be 30 years in higher education.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The college hired me back my first year after I graduated to be the multicultural admissions counselor, the inaugural multicultural admissions counselor at Western Oregon, to be able to go back to Portland and recruit students of color to come to college.
That's beautiful.
So that was really the foundation, the underpinning. My heart is with community colleges and public universities because of the access to resources and support and the opportunity to really just think more critically about your world, my worldview,
Yes,
and
yes.
develop a worldview that I maybe wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right.
And then moved back home and wanted to, after working for a year, was ready to get back to Portland, a more city, get back to the city, but also pursue a master's degree. And so after working 1 year at my alma mater, I entered into a master's program in education.
Master's in education.
Yes, so Master's of Science in Educational Policy, Foundations, and Administrative Studies, with a focus on adult learners. And so went back to Portland, went into a master's program full-time, worked part-time as a tutor coordinator and academic advisor at both Portland State University and Portland Community College, the Cascade campus. So I started my community college career in 1997 as a part-time advisor, and have just continued and stayed really on a path of community college, as a community college practitioner, with a little bit of experience back in the university. So 5 years at the university and about 24 or 5 years in the community college setting in both Oregon, Virginia, and now California, these last 5+ years.
Okay, so you got your bachelor's degree in
Communication studies,
your master's degree in educational policy,
educational policy.
and a doctorate in.
And then I pursued my doctorate in 2005 while I was also serving an inaugural role as the inaugural coordinator for the Multicultural Center at Portland Community College, the Sylvania campus, which is a larger campus, and entered into a doctoral program in education with a specialization in community college leadership.
So listen, students, you can do this.
Yes.
She's got all 3 degrees, and she found her why and her purpose, which we're going to kind of dive into a little bit later. But this is really motivating to me to hear her story. Tony, you had another
Thank
question?
you. Yeah.
I was going to ask you who or what inspired you for your master's degree and then finally your doctorate.
Yes.
Question.
Who and what inspired me? Well, I would say the who are our communities. That I experienced firsthand as a very young graduate. I was barely 21, going back into my neighborhoods, my community, my neighborhood specifically, but also neighborhoods I grew up in, and into the high schools with large numbers of students of color, particularly Asian, Pacific Islander, Latinx, Black, Native American, working class white students, and introducing ideas about college that no one had told us about. We hadn't learned about it. So I spent a lot of time tabling at college fairs, doing one-on-one sessions with students and their families, making sure we had bilingual interpreters to be able to assist with talking with our families. This was in the 90s. This was mid-90s. And so I think the who was my peers. I started to ask questions as I was becoming more aware and critically conscious of my world, particularly having gone to college at that time where there was racial unrest in LA, If you know 1991, 92 were the LA riots, there was racial unrest, has been racial unrest in Portland. There's been hate crimes all up and down the state. I was in an area that also was predominantly white and rural, that had roots in white supremacy and organized groups. And so there were lots of times during my life at the college where I felt at risk, like physically at risk, being a young girl of color, an hour away from home, but in a very isolated rural white community, with just being one of 10 students of color having been there. And it's changed now. My good friend who I graduated with has been the longtime director of multicultural student services and programs. They're an HSI. They've got very robust student support services. But we were there, her and I. Her name is Ana Hernandez Hunter. Shout out to her as the long time expertise there at Western Oregon University. We were there at a time where we were pioneering diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Whoa.
We were pioneering anti-racism programs, pioneering on the heels of also leaders that came before us during the civil rights movement, the Chicano movement. So it was the early 90s. We saw unrest in person. We felt it on our college campuses, and we knew there would be better opportunities because of the work of the social political movements, of the Chicano movement, of the Black civil rights, of the Black movement, Black Panther movement, and the Black civil rights movement, and civil rights movement for gay rights, etc. So we knew there was work to be done, and I started to raise questions then about why was I the only one in my high school group of friends that got to go to college? Why was I the only one in my family that learned about this or that went to college? And so it's those questions, the curiosity of the students that I was working with in 95, and also my family, my mom, looking at my mother's working conditions, working long. I don't know how you're gonna pay for college, but you're gonna go to college. So my first job was working at the Print Center. I was a work study student my freshman, sophomore year. I worked at the Print Center, and I'll never forget Lee. Lee was my first boss. He's maybe retired now, I don't know, but Lee was the longtime director of the Print Center at Western Oregon University, who came from a small country, Micronesia, and he was an international student who also made a life for himself in Monmouth, Oregon. And he hired me, took a chance on me, hired me, showed me the ropes, taught me how to do a lot of important things in the Print Center, running machines, etc., supporting faculty and staff and administrators. And so, I have a very strong work ethic, having been the only child, having had to work through high school, having to drive and run errands for my mom, my family. That working with him in the Print Center, he became a mentor, uncle figure, just like Dr. Leo Rasca Hidalgo, just like Mr. Martinez, who again are friends and mentors now in my professional life. But it's those three. It's my peers like Ana Hernandez Hunter, who we were in this together, as students. There's other students who discovered we could create a professional life helping and supporting other students like us who had limited access to opportunities, but who maximized them while we were there, partly because we didn't know any better, and also we were open and curious and really trying to make sense of our world. And so it was that network, informal and formal network, that also was the catalyst for me to go back to college to then answer questions about why aren't we staying? Why aren't we staying in college and graduating? Why are we taking 17 units in our first semester? Where are the interventions? Mm-hmm. How can we create a bigger pathway, but then also make sure we're supported and also disrupt some of the forms of discrimination, bias, sexism, racism, ageism, classism that we experience when we're here. Because I was actually in my first interaction with the School of Business, I was derailed, discouraged from majoring in business. When I said, I'm here, I want to get a business degree because I want to open up a beauty salon. I want to open up salons and back in my neighborhood. And it was that department chair at that university who said, why would you want to go into business? Women aren't successful in business. Women don't do well in business. And that didn't add up for me because I was raised by a single working mother who owned her own businesses without degrees.
Yes.
I was raised by a Lola, my Filipino grandmother, who ran a business out of our house.
Yes.
I was raised by my Jewish grandmother, my Baba, whose family owned a restaurant supply business in Portland. But because of sexism, ageism, classism, racism, her husband had to run that business. But she was the offspring of business owners,
Yes.
Jewish business owners in early history Portland.
Okay.
And so that just I didn't take that as oh, poor me, I'm victimized. I took that as actually, I'm okay, but that doesn't add up for me, because the women and my father, who, when my parents split up, went to Southern California, also was an entrepreneur, is an entrepreneur. So it just didn't add up for me and my family's situation as working class immigrants, working class migrants, working class, multiracial family. We made ends meet, and we were creative. And so in this formal setting, there was a disconnect, but I took it with a grain of salt and pursued based on my experience and mistakes.
Wow.
I made a lot of mistakes my freshman year. I learned a lot my freshman and sophomore year, but I also learned other skills that have served me really well around community building, relationship building, organizing, staying curious, trying to understand some of these root causes of why we're in the predicaments that we're in. And that really served me well to kind of create more of a think innovatively about how I'm going to do school, how I'm going to do college, how I'm going to do a career. I tried the kind of formal track here as a communication major. There was this pathway to go into insurance, State Farm. And I remember sitting with my friends. We were wearing suits for like the first time. I remember being in a navy blue suit, so uncomfortable. Borrowed this skirt from, friends who had graduated before me, who were like, oh, yeah, State Farm's doing these internships for students of color in Salem, Oregon. You should really try it out. And I just remember sitting in that orientation and having to take a paper pencil test, just thinking, this is not, I don't see myself doing insurance. And for 25, 30 years, it was another moment where I'm like, I don't want to do this. And I don't even remember finishing the test and leaving, thinking this just doesn't feel right. But what did feel right was engaging with students, engaging with families, engaging with people on college campuses and in the community about college, about the ins and outs of college, about why not college, when. And that really helped me research and study my experience and my community's experience, learn more about Filipino American history and tradition and culture and some of the barriers that our communities have faced in the Northwest in particular. So that was the catalyst for the master's, and then the doctorate was I had aspirations to teach.
Oh.
And maybe administration, but I worked for about 10 years leading an anti-oppression student leadership development program at Portland Community College. There's still multicultural centers programs till this day, but from 1997, 98 till 2010, really helped to create an institution of student leadership, students of color in leadership programs that also supported men of color, a first of its kind men of color mentoring program. And I thought, well, this is great, and maybe I want to teach. And I had already been teaching women's studies part-time thanks to a colleague who was teaching women's studies at Portland State University, and then now she's longtime faculty, full professor and administrator at Oregon State University in women's studies, Dr. Patty Duncan. That helped me, curating these experiences also helped me clarify what I want to do.
But it seems, from what you're sharing with our students, it seemed like after that freshman experience, you kind of knew it seems to me like you were kind of guided into what you're doing now.
Yes. From the experiences.
From all of your
experiences. That's right, the
experiences.
hands-on experiences of helping. Very parallel to cosmetology. You're helping, you're serving, you're hands-on. I felt a very different intuitive and intrinsic reward from doing this because I wanted my family.
So they hear this.
Yes, I wanted my family to also have this access. So I felt an intuitive call because I kept thinking, why didn't my mom get to have these experiences? Why didn't my dad? Where are my friends? And, without getting choked up, it felt like a responsibility being first in my family.
Yeah.
But also some guilt.
That's
Why
right.
do I get to do this and they didn't?
Right.
So I think the activation to solve that question, which we're still solving.
We're still solving.
Philippines to the presidency, I'm still solving it,
Yes.
just differently. But I think it was that, it was probably guilt, shame, coupled with agitation and activation of I shouldn't be the only one.
Wow.
I'm proud and I'm not proud that I'm first generation.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
proud
right.
and not proud that I had to experience racism and discrimination and sexism as a young person and then learn what that meant, that trauma. And so we talk about imposter syndrome, and I just want to say to us, we are informants. We are not imposters.
Oh!
We are informants.
Well, that touches me.
Yes, we had a gift of access, and now we have a responsibility to open up that access even wider. We are not imposters. We are not, that imposter syndrome, I understand it. I believed it, I studied it, I carried it. I waited all freshman and sophomore year for someone to tap me on the shoulder and say, we were just joking. You got to go back to Portland. Go back to work. Go start your family. You don't belong. So I was waiting to get tapped on my shoulder. And then in different jobs, still thinking, this is unreal. I'm the president. Before this, I'm a vice president.
Yeah.
Someone going to tell me to go back?
Yeah.
But I just want to say, we're informants. We are informing our own lives, our children's lives, our family members' lives, and we're impacting in tremendous ways the next generation of accountants, of economists, economics faculty,
Wow.
the next future of MBAs. Because again, my mom had all the expertise and experience of getting an MBA, but because she didn't have the formal training and education when I was going to college, we were looked down upon. But here's the thing, education, community college, university, colleges, state colleges, they transform lives. It's not because of the piece of paper you get.
Right.
It's the experiences you have with
That's
the
right.
Dr. Ajunes, the Dr. Franks, the Mr. Tonys that are all here in this room and outside this room. It's those experiences you have that develop you into getting that associate's degree of business, that bachelor's of science and business, that MBA. And it's those experiences and getting the paper at the end that are transformative. My mom went back to school when I was 28 at 47 and got her associate's degree and didn't stop till she got her PhD at almost 51. And she has an MBA in there.
Wow.
So she went a different route. You live your life and you make ends meet. She has all types of different work experience and lived experience and was able to then, once I was grown and got my schooling and degree, made a decision. She says I helped inspire her, but she also was my inspiration and got her degrees and finished a career just recently at 70 years old of teaching and being an administrator in higher education.
Wow, your mom
in
sounds
business, in a
amazing.
school of business. So
That's
she'd
amazing.
be a great speaker
Yes.
too one day. And my dad too also. Personal growth, continuous education, focused a life of hospitality, went into a life of audiovisual and technology and equipment and computer science, and so also self-made, self-taught, without formal education but certifications, wanting a different life for himself. And my siblings too have also gone on and pursued careers and degrees, and so there's value and benefit of being a pioneer, a trailblazer. Also know it's isolating and at times very lonely, but very worth it when you are blazing a path. You're not sure what it is, but you know where you don't want to be. And I have reached those.
You know where you don't want to be.
Yeah, you know what you don't want to do, but you don't know what's ahead. And I think I've been at that crossroads multiple times in my life with various decisions. And I've always chosen the path unknown.
And that is scary.
It's very scary, but I've always I'm like, let's try. I want to see.
Let's try.
Yep, I'm
Let's
curious.
try, students.
I'm
Let's
open.
try.
and I'm going to see where it takes me. I can always go back,
That's right.
and I can always, knowingly, I will always fail, but I'm going to keep going
Whoa.
and keep going. And so landing here at this presidency is very much an honor. I'm so humbled because it took many tries to get to where I am, and many fails, but I've kept going.
This is beautiful. So I don't want to rush. This
Yeah,
is a wonderful.
no, I
don't want to
appreciate the
rush
time.
through this.
Yes, appreciate
so
the time.
if it's okay with you,
Yeah.
can we do a part 2?
Absolutely.
I would.
Yeah,
I would love
absolutely.
that. Tony, Fred, we're gonna do a part 2. Is that okay? All right. So
Would love that.
students.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. What an amazing story you have. I look forward to having you back so we can dive into this a little bit more and ask you a few questions that our students may have as a result of what they heard from you.
Okay.
So thank you
Gladly.
for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you
Students,
so much.
oh, thank
Yeah.
you. We will see you soon. Take care.